Welcome to Genealogy Gems and Elevenses with Lisa. Oh gosh, I've reverted back to Genealogy Gems. Well, it is genealogygems.com, but this is Elevenses with Lisa. I'm Lisa Louise Cooke. Do you have a DNA problem? Maybe it's as simple as I have so many matches, I don't know where to focus, or I don't know how to keep track of them, or how can I really use all this to do what I really want to do, which is family history. Well, today we're going to visit with somebody who has worked past those problems and not only solved genealogical problems for herself, but she's also helping other people do it. And she's here today to help you. So my special guest is Sara Allen. She's a librarian at the Allen County Public Library Genealogy Center, which if you watch this show, you are familiar with them. And I wanted to talk to her today because she's not a biologist, okay? She's not a genetic genealogist guru. She's just like you and me. She's passionate about family history. She shares with people, they've had some very popular webinars lately, and she shares really practical, easy to understand information about how to use DNA records to solve genealogical problems. And now we are really being lucky to have this episode today because the day that Sara and I were supposed to meet originally to record, of course, there was a huge snowstorm and the Allen County Public Library was closed, so we had to kind of move things around. I'm here in Texas and we are buried in a deep freeze with some devastating power outages. Our prayers go out to those who are without power. Here at our house, we were without water for some time. My daughter still has no water, and last I heard, they were maybe going to lose power. But, you know, we're all making it, and our prayers go out to everybody. And you're soon going to hear that amongst all this chaos that was going on trying to pull this episode together, that I put my microphone on the wrong setting. So I kind of sound like I'm sitting in a Folgers coffee can during this interview, but it doesn't matter because Sara is the one that we want to hear from today. However, they were doing some construction at the library, so occasionally it sounds like we used jackhammers to do our DNA, but I know you guys will understand. But look, snow, sleet, construction zones, coffee cans, no water, whatever, none of it's going to get in the way of these genealogists bringing this show to you today. So without further ado, let's get started. Well, hi, Sara. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You know, I was thinking about this. You're a librarian at one of the largest genealogy libraries in the country, if not the world. And not every librarian is well-versed on DNA. How did that happen for you?
Well, my mother became interested in DNA back at the very early days of family tree DNA in like 2000, 2001. And she wanted to use it to solve a mystery in our family tree. And she got me kind of involved in it. So I was interested in DNA from the very beginning because of my mom, basically. Yeah. And then I've just pursued the passion basically since then.
Well, and I'm sure it helps you out just in everyday work that you do. You're talking to genealogists throughout the day. And so I'm sure that the question of how DNA fits into this puzzle certainly creeps in, doesn't it?
More and more, yes. We have more and more people coming in every day or contacting us by email saying, help, I'm trying to figure this out, or I've already done my DNA and I don't know what to do next, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I thought, we'd do a little bit of a tune-up today, and I'm so glad that you're going to help us kind of get off to a good start for the new year. For those who have never tested, what are the DNA choices these days? I know some of the tests have come and gone and changed and companies have changed. Give us a little quick update.
Yes. Okay. So there's 3 different types of DNA tests that you could actually take. There's one test that is very popular and everyone's heard of it, but there's 3 tests and there's 4 major companies that do the testing. nowadays. There's some other companies, but they're lesser companies and they're not really talked about that much. So the three tests are autosomal DNA, which is the one that everyone's heard of. This is the one where it gives you your ethnicity results. And so people are very interested in that. And it also gives you a list of matches. And these are people that are genetic cousins with you. And so you can then contact them and work with them to learn more about the family. And that is offered by Ancestry.com. It's offered by FamilyTreeDNA, MyHeritage, and 23andMe. Those are the four companies. And then there's the Y chromosome DNA, which is a very underused test. And I really wish more people would take it. This is offered by FamilyTreeDNA testing company. And this is the one my mom and I started on back in 2000 to try to figure out a problem on our male line. And you have to have a male take this test. So we had my uncle take it. And because we were trying to find out about his lineage, going back on the direct paternal line. And then there is a mitochondrial DNA test, and that is the direct female line test. And this would be either a male or a female can take this test. And it's not as useful because you can have an exact match with another person who has taken the test, and they could be related to you 1,000 years ago. So it may be a more recent type of match, but it may not be. And so you don't want to spin your wheels kind of on that. So you want to kind of know your situation that you're trying to solve before you take the mitochondrial test.
Right, exactly. And I know with the autosomal, it's, when we're talking about matches, we're really talking about 6 generations are back. So, right, that's kind of where the real value is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot more limited than the mitochondrial. So not too long ago, we had Rand Sneer from MyHeritageDNA on the show, and he was talking about their new genetic, I think they call them genetic groups. And I know that Ancestry has come out with the new genetic communities. How do you see these kind of impacting our research? Have you had a chance to jump into those a bit?
Well, I think those are really neat. They tell us kind of where our family's been living the last 100, 200 years. So this is on the autosomal DNA test if you've taken one of those. And Ancestry and MyHeritage offer these. And so I have 2 genetic communities at Ancestry. One of them is New York settlers, and the other one is Tennessee settlers. So it's telling me that after my ancestors got to America, they lived in New York and Tennessee for a period of time. And that's exactly spot on because my grandmother's family is from New York and my grandfather's family is from Tennessee. So if someone was adopted, I think this would be really neat for them to kind of get some background on the family without having to do any research at all. So
yeah, it's really nice. It kind of gives you at least a little bit more of a needle in a haystack to try to follow, maybe confirm something that you've already found.
Exactly.
Have there been any other major DNA updates recently that have caught your eye that you think we need to be aware of?
Well, FamilyTreeDNA, the company I was talking about earlier, was just recently sold. It was a family-run company, and now it's been sold to another group. And I think it was a friendly sale. So I think we can expect that things at FamilyTreeDNA will continue along as they have been. There may be some new innovations. There may be some new, money coming into the company now. And so they may be able to upgrade some things. So that was something that has happened. So it's noteworthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, some folks find that their matches kind of get overwhelming. That's easy to happen because sometimes you get lots of a good thing. And they aren't really sure how to take good advantage of them and kind of where to put their focus. What recommendations do you have to help people kind of get a fresh new look and make better use of the matches that they've got?
Yeah, so this would be with your autosomal matches. Sometimes we can get thousands of matches. And people, if they start thinking about, I have thousands of matches, I should be doing something with those matches, they can get overwhelmed. I would suggest that you don't think of it that way, and kind of trick your brain into thinking about it just in small, manageable chunks. So the companies will arrange those matches for you from the highest match to the lowest match, meaning you're more closely related to the highest match and very distantly related to the lowest match. So I wouldn't necessarily spend a lot of time on those really, really low matches unless you're more advanced in your research and you know kind of what you're doing. I would just kind of take it in chunks and look at your top, 25 matches, maybe the people that show up on the top 25 matches, and see if you can just play around with the matching company's website and really try to understand what you're seeing there in those top 25, because you should, unless you're adopted, you should be able to figure out your relationship to a lot of them by looking at their trees, by doing different things. Maybe you'll recognize their name if they use their real name. So there's different things that you can do like that. I think that just kind of take it in manageable chunks and don't stress yourself out about it.
And really, to focus on our best matches. I think that's a really good message, that you don't need to deal with all of them necessarily, but really take that close look at the best ones. And I suppose the ones that really fit into the question that you have, that you're trying to solve, like very much to do with your mom.
Right.
I know you've put together some examples and some things to show us. Can I invite you to share your screen, and let's talk a little bit more about how we can make the best use out of our matches.
Okay.
Well, I love this. So Sarah's going to help us do a little bit of DNA problem solving. And I like this beginning steps, because I think sometimes that's the hardest part, isn't it?
Yeah. I think just getting started. Sometimes people are in a state of inertia. So just getting started and learning how to think about your problems, and if DNA can solve them, is a good place to start.
Excellent. Well, take it away.
All righty. Okay, I'm going to give you some principles, and then we're going to go through two short examples, very different, but two short examples. So the principles are really, the first principle is you're going to want to make sure that you've actually done the traditional genealogical research first. So that would be, the census records, the birth, marriage, and death records, just the traditional genealogical research as best as you can for this particular genealogical problem. And then you will add DNA as a secondary tool that you will use. And then you're going to follow the clues. The DNA will maybe give you some clues, and then you're continuing to do the traditional genealogical research all along. And so you might come up with more clues there as well. And so you keep doing that and kind of working back and forth with them. So that would be what I would suggest that you do. And then if you're going to come to a conclusion, you really ought to be familiar with the genealogical proof standard. And there also are DNA standards that they have come out with, kind of to give you guidance on how to use DNA to solve problems. So you should know about those. Now, next, this is Sarah's plan, I guess we can call it, that just some steps you should go through to kind of think through your problem before you start working with the DNA. And these are the 5 steps. Identify your research problem, number 1. Number 2, summarize the genealogical research that you've already done. These are both best done, I think, if you write them out. You don't have to write them longhand, of course, you could type them, but just kind of clarifying your thoughts, that will help you, and you will see gaps and things that you have missed. At least I do when I write it all out. I think, oh gosh, I didn't do that, or
I agree.
This doesn't make sense. I wasn't logical here. You just kind of catch things.
Mm-hmm.
So then number 3, you're going to choose the most relevant DNA test to order, because remember there are 3, and you're going to choose the most helpful family member to test, because you could possibly test different family members on different sides of your family.
Super important for you with your YDNA, wasn't it? You said you had to test a man, but you had to test the right man in the tree.
Right. Exactly. We had to test my uncle because we wanted to find out about my mom's maiden name, but she couldn't do the Y test. So if my mom hadn't had brothers, we would have been a little more limited in what we could have done. Okay. And then number 5, make sure that you have tried to complete the rest of your family tree as best as you can, because you're going to get DNA matches to all the different lines of your tree, and you're going to want to eliminate the ones that are not applicable to the problem you're trying to solve. Okay, so I'm going to spend a little minute more on choosing the most relevant DNA test. So, and this is another Sara rule, and other people might tell you different things. So, just kind of keep this in mind that this is my advice, that autosomal testing is almost always the best way to go when you're first starting out, unless your mystery is about 5 or 6 great-grandparents back, because autosomal testing will really stop at about 5 or 6 great-grandparents. You won't have enough DNA inherited from them to really solve a genealogical problem. And that's a little bit of a squishy number. It could be 7 great-grandparents back, but somewhere around in there. So if your problem is further back on your tree, you are going to have to look at the Y chromosome or the mitochondrial if you have somebody that's appropriate to test. And you can recruit people to test. You can definitely go out there and try to find somebody that is in the correct paternal line or maternal line that you're looking for. You may have to approach strangers. My mom and I have approached a number of strangers and asked them to test. Some of them actually say yes. I mean, when you introduce yourself and tell them what you're doing and show them the tree and how you're related and so forth. But yeah.
That's awesome. Now, people always ask, and I've heard this before in our live chat, so what was your icebreaker? How did you kind of open the door so they kept talking to you?
Well, this was a negative example of this, but my mom and I went into the store once, and it was owned by one of our relatives, and we'd never met him before. And I don't remember what she said to him. I think she just said, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and we're related." And she asked him, and he said no. But yeah, I don't know. You just kind of have to start. I think I would start out with, how you're related. Mm-hmm. So these are obviously going to be people that you're somehow shirt tail related to, that you're trying to get to test because they have the DNA that you need to solve your problem.
Yeah. Kind of showing where the common ground is. Yep,
right.
Definitely.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. So then I have a handy chart here. So this is just telling you if you're having trouble conceptualizing what I'm saying. So if there's a male named Jerry, I'm just naming him Jerry. If he wants to test his YDNA, he's going to be able to answer questions on his paternal line going up that line there in blue on the top of the screen. And if Jerry wants to test his mitochondrial DNA, which would be his mother's line, it would be the pink line going across the bottom of the screen. And Jerry's sister Geraldine can also test her mitochondrial DNA, but she cannot take a Y test because she's not male. And then this is just showing you the autosomal DNA, which is so powerful because you have it from all of the relatives. You don't have it from just one particular line. Going back, like I said, about to your 6th, 7th great grandparents, you will have some measurable DNA.
And your percentages there really help bring that to light, don't they? It gets small quick.
It gets small quick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So then the best family member to test, this is also my opinion, but if you're going to do the autosomal DNA and you have older family members that are still living of a different generation than you are, you should test those older generation people first. If they will agree to test, you'll have to explain to them what's going on. All of my elderly relatives that I've asked to test have said, "Oh yeah, you're the family genealogist. We'll test for you." So not everybody has that experience, but so if your parents are alive, your grandparents, a great aunt or uncle, a first cousin of your parent is still alive, I would test them first. But if you can't do that, then you test yourself and you move on. But because the elder generation will have more DNA from their 6th and 7th great grandparents that you would not have because it's kind of passed out of your autosomal DNA. And then, of course, with the Y and the mitochondrial DNA, you have to find somebody on the correct inheritance path, like we talked about before. Okay, sorting DNA results. People have questions about this, and I'm not really going to go into this a whole lot, but you can sort out your matches by family line or by common ancestor couple. I do common ancestor couple. So identify who the common ancestor couple is, and I mark it somehow that that's how I'm related to that person. How do you find out who the match is? Well, sometimes you'll recognize their name. Sometimes you'll be able to view their tree and look at it. If you see names in common or even ancestors in common, you'll know. Sometimes you have to research their tree. Let's say their tree only has like 3 people on it, but one of the surnames is a surname from your family. Then you could probably do some research on it yourself and figure out who this person is, perhaps. And then you can use known cousins to help you sort. So let's say your cousin Bobby has tested his DNA. You can look, and you're only related to Bobby in one particular way. That's the important key there. You're not double related to him. So anybody that matches both you and Bobby should be related to you the same way that Bobby is, on that same line of the family. And so you can sort people that way as well. So those are some little quick tips.
That's great. Yeah, that's a very common question.
Yeah. Okay. So are we ready to go into the examples?
Yes.
Okay. So the first one is a traditional genealogy kind of question, like that we all have. Who are the parents of one of my ancestors? And I don't know who they were. This is one of my ancestors. Who are the parents of Dovey Reynolds Allen? And Dovey was born. So first we need to define our problem. So Dovey was born around 1822 in North Carolina. She was married in 1846 in Owen County, Indiana, to Philip Allen, my name. She died in 1901 in Jefferson County, Kansas, and no records have been found naming her parents. So then the research summary, this is the research that I have done. I've found lots of records about Dovey as an adult when she was already married. I've sought out her obituary, which did not name her parents. There was no death certificate because I don't think Kansas was keeping death certificates at that time. So that was kind of a bummer. I went to Owen County. This would have been 25 years ago. And I did a lot of research. Unfortunately, I don't remember what I did. I remember being there and I didn't take good notes. So I really probably need to, this is kind of an oopsies where you kind of, think back on it and are like, oh, I should have known better, but I didn't. I really should go to Owen County again and redo some of this because I don't know what courthouse books I looked at. I know I looked at some courthouse books. I was in the courthouse, but what did I do? No idea. So my research on Dovey has been kind of not the best, quite frankly.
Yeah. Well, that happens to all of us, doesn't it? And
it does.
I love your summary. I mean, the fact that you put that statement together so you had all the details in one paragraph, but then you are summarizing what you've already done. And I think it's a step easy just to jump over, but it helps you kind of really get the clear picture of where you've been so you know what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do have another part of the summary though. So I did identify a possible father for Dovey, and this was from census records. And this is pretty, standard work. When you have, somebody getting married in 1846, you want to try looking at the 1840 census and see whether you can find people of her maiden last name and what you can learn about the family. Now, those censuses are harder to work with. They don't name people. They have little tick marks, but I found only one household in Owen County that had a female 15 to 18 or 15 to 19, which would be Dovey's age. So it's all I really had to go on. So I investigated this household, and it was headed by a man named William Reynolds. He died. He left a will. He named some children in his will, but not all of his children, because I knew he had like 10 kids in the census. So his will was not completely naming all of his heirs. So Dovey could still be related to him, but I couldn't prove it at all. So that was where we stood with Dovey. And then we went to DNA. Can DNA help us? And the answer is yes, because she's my third great grandmother. So remember I said autosomal DNA will help with going back to probably your 5th or 6th great grandparent. So I should have enough of Debbie's DNA to really help me. But can I go back? Oh, let's see. Oh, yeah. And YDNA would not be appropriate, and mitochondrial DNA is not relevant in this case because of the inheritance. So here's the tree, and you can see that Debbie is over on the right-hand side. She's on my dad's side, and so my mitochondrial DNA is going down here. My dad's mitochondrial DNA is going over here. So we could maybe find somebody, but I think autosomal will help us. And which relatives should we test? So I'm fortunate to have my dad alive. He's 89, and I have his DNA, and I have his sister's DNA. So we're going to use my aunt's DNA to get back one generation closer to Debbie, because Debbie is her 2nd great grandmother. And I've completed my tree to the other lines. So then you're going to go into your DNA matches is what you're going to do next. And the strategy that I decided to follow in this particular case is to search for a surname in my matches. And all the companies allow you to do this: Ancestry, MyHeritage, and MyHeritage and Family Tree DNA. 23andMe used to allow you to do it, but now it's kind of limited in what you can do with that. But hopefully you've tested it, one of the other companies, for this example. So we're going to just search our DNA matches for the name Reynolds. And you can see this is the Ancestry page here, and I'm going to show you Ancestries. So this is my aunt's DNA matches. Up at the top here, you can see this search over here on the right. This is what you want to click on. And then it brings up this whole screen here. And this box in the middle says surname in your matches trees. That's what you want to do, because you want to find other people that are researching Reynolds, right?
Right.
So we're going to put Reynolds in that box. Then we get a bunch of people, we get a bunch of hits. And so these are all matches of my aunts that have Reynolds in their tree. And I have to go in and look at every tree now. It's not going to be like magically telling me anything without me kind of going to and doing the work. But when I do that, I'm going to look for Reynolds in Owen County, Indiana first. That would be my first choice. Reynolds in Indiana and Reynolds in North Carolina, because that was where she was born, would also be helpful, and maybe some in Kansas. But if I find somebody with a tree that has Reynolds in New England or Reynolds in Canada or something like that, I'm going to say, I'm going to pass them right now, because that's not where I think I'm headed with this. If I get new information and I need to go back and suddenly find out they were from Canada, then I could do that. So when I do that, fortunately, we get 24 matches from my aunt's DNA match list that had Owen County Reynolds in their tree. And these people all were descended from William Reynolds, the guy that I thought might be Debbie's dad, but I couldn't prove it. And so he had at least 10 kids, and my aunt has matches to 6 of those kids, multiple matches. Now they're low-level matches. So they're 27 centimorgans down to 8 centimorgans. And that's just the unit of measurement a centimorgan is for your DNA. And those are small matches, but they are consistent with someone being a 3rd, a 4th, 5th cousin with you. And in this case, it would be with my aunt.
Where do you keep all this information? Are you putting that in an Excel spreadsheet, or how are you kind of tracking as you're digging through the trees?
You could do that. I do things on paper.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd scribble it down on a piece of paper. Yeah. But you can also make notes in your, in each of the testing companies, including 23andMe, you can make notes in the match itself. There'll be a place that says, add a note or something like that. And you can write a note to yourself. You're the only person that will see the note. So you could kind of put it in there as well. But yeah, Excel spreadsheet would be probably a great idea. I'm just not that organized. So what does this actually tell us? I don't have a good conclusion for this, because I haven't finished doing the genealogical work that I need to do. Remember, I want to go back to Owen County and do more work. And I haven't written it up as a solved case. but I think it's very conclusive that we're somehow related to William Reynolds. And if Dovey's not his daughter, she's probably his niece, is what I would say, based on just the relationships that we've seen. And you also want to check the shared matches just to be sure that you're on the right track. So when I look at my aunt's shared matches with the William Reynolds matches, they are on her paternal line, which is who it should be. If they were somehow matching my aunt's maternal line, which is from Eastern Europe and not at all related to Reynolds, then we'd have a problem. So you want to check your shared matches to make sure that they're sharing with the right side of the family. I think more genealogical research will actually solve this. If I go back to Owen County, I'll probably find some records in the courthouse that I missed the first time. If I was able to identify who William Reynolds' wife was, I also might solve this, because if my aunt and I have matches to that woman, whoever she is, then that would mean that I'm descended from William and his wife. But we don't know his wife's name.
Right.
So I think we're really close to solving this. I feel like I've gone in a good direction.
It sounds like it. Absolutely. Well, and you make a good case for why source citation is so important. A lot of people who are maybe watching are new to genealogy. That's the thing. It's recording as you go. But like you say, you can go back and kind of fill in genealogically, and it all comes together with the DNA. That's exciting.
Yeah. All right. So are we ready to move on to our second example? Okay, so this one is a real different kind of examples, but everybody has a mystery in their tree, and some people have a mystery that's more recent in time frame. A lot of people who are adopted would have this situation, or you might have a mysterious grandparent. And in this case, this is somebody that allowed me to present their information today. I changed some names. But she has a mysterious grandfather, and his name is Leroy Porter. And so the problem was that Leroy Porter was born in 1897 in either France or in Pennsylvania. He married Ina Hill, and he died in Michigan. He told tall tales, and so he was known for that in the family. They knew he kind of stretched the truth sometimes. And he liked to tell people that he'd been born in Paris, France, and that his last name was not Porter, but Portier, French pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
But they kind of had their doubts about this. And so they wanted to know what the real story is. So the research was kind of inconclusive because he's very mysterious. And when you have a mysterious ancestor, they don't show up in the records like you think that they should. So after he died, his death certificate was filled out. The informant was his wife. And Ina said that his parents were Daniel Porter and Mary Bashley of Pennsylvania. So nothing about France on this death certificate. But they can't find Leroy on any census prior to 1920. So when he's a boy, he's not found. He's not found with parents named Daniel and Mary. He's not found at all under the name Leroy Porter. So it leaves you to wonder whether he possibly changed his name or some unknown thing happened in his life.
Told his wife a story, right?
Yeah. So this is the problem. So the DNA testing will definitely help solve this. We have a granddaughter that wants to test, and she's taken the autosomal DNA test. And so she's going to have about 25% of Leroy's DNA. So that should be plenty to work with, and she should get a lot of matches, unless he really is from France or a foreign country, because many of the people that are testing are US based people, not all, but recent immigrants will have trouble sometimes finding good DNA matches. But if Leroy was really from Pennsylvania, for instance, she should have good matches to him.
I think of MyHeritage as maybe being a DNA company that has a little more international exposure. I know when I spoke in Oslo, I was surprised how many people from different countries at their MyHeritage conference, and many of them had tested. So that might be a good way to go.
Yes, yes. And I always tell people to kind of, if they have a mystery that they're trying to solve, to get their DNA into all 4 of the autosomal testing companies, because you never know where somebody is going to test that would be very useful to you, your solving your mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, and then test the correct person. So Leroy has several daughters that are still alive. These would be Kathy's aunts, but they are not agreed to take testing. So basically, Kathy's going to have to do with her own DNA at this point in time. And here's the tree. And I have marked out the mom's side just for privacy's sake, but Kathy knows who her mom is and has that information about her mom's side of the family. So you can see Leroy's on her father's side. And Ina, her family is also known. So Ina's family is known, mom's family is known, Leroy's family is not known.
And Sarah, just to reinforce for the viewer, the reason she asked her aunts was because they're going to have bigger portions, right? Because they're one generation back. And that's the advantage. Is it correct that you might look for the oldest person within your line because they've got more to work with?
Yes. Her aunts would have 50% of their DNA from Leroy and 50% from Ina.
Exactly.
So that would be an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can see that Leroy this situation could benefit from a Y chromosome test if Kathy had a family member who was in the correct inheritance path. And I'm not certain if she does. She may have a brother, she may not. So that would be something to look into possibly, but I think it can be solved by autosomal DNA. Okay, so this is a feature that is only available at Ancestry. AncestryDNA allows you to create groups of matches, up to 24 of them, and you will be able to assign colors to each group of matches. And so this, I'm just showing you real quick how I have mine arranged. Like I told you earlier, I do them by ancestral couple. And so this is a match of mine, Henry. And over here to the right, you can see this add to group by the arrow. It also might be under some 3 dots. They're changing their site over right now. So there might be 3 dots over on the right, and you click on the 3 dots and it'll say add to group. But anyways, I created these groups, and you can see I have a group called Adam Klein and Sara Black. I have a group called George Klein and Elsie Hill, and a group called Jackson Edgett and Ruth Deo. These are all ancestor couples of mine. I believe Adam Klein and Sara Black are my 4th great grandparents. So anytime I find a match who is also descended from Adam Klein and Sara Black, I can stick them in this group. And that way I sort them by the ancestral couple. So that is a neat feature. And we're going to use this feature to sort Kathy's matches for this Leroy Porter situation. So Kathy doesn't need to do a whole lot of complicated sorting. She really just needs to sort out her mother's line. And I'm going to give them a pink dot. So anytime she finds somebody that's descended from an ancestor on her mother's side of the family, she can give them a pink dot like this. And anytime she finds someone that is descended from one of these ancestors on Ina's side, she can give them a green dot. And then she should have quite a few matches left over that are not marked with dots. And those would be from Leroy's potential family, right? And I had her give them an orange dot. So when we do that, here we have sorted Kathy's top matches, and you can see some green dots. I don't know what the yellow dots are. I'm not really sure, but the green dots are Ina. And if we see a pink dot, that is her mom. But you can see there's a lot of orange dots. And so these were people that did not descend from anybody on Ina's side, did not descend from anybody on mom's side. So they must be Leroy's family. So what you're going to do then is look at the trees of all these people. So there's a tree here, there's a tree, there's no tree there. There's a tree here, there's a tree here, there's a tree here. We're going to open those up and look at them. And you're going to evaluate them. Now, clearly you would hope to see some porters if Leroy was really a porter, but you don't want to get wedded to the idea that you're going to find porters and discount everybody else and say, well, I don't find any porters. It's not helping me. No, it's going to show you something, and you have to figure out what it is it's showing you. So what it showed us was that two families kept showing up in the match groups, and one was named Hedges and one was named Cooke. And these families, because Kathy had so many matches to these people, they had to be Leroy's parents or grandparents. This is probably a line coming down from Leroy's either parents or grandparents. And you want to try to find a marriage between the two, because if these are his parents' lines, then you would hope to find a marriage or a relationship, I guess, between the two groups that resulted in Leroy. And yes, we were able to find a marriage between these two families. We have a Daniel Hedges who married an Alice Cooke around 1894 in Warren County, Pennsylvania. And we figured this out by doing genealogy. So once the DNA kind of gives you some clues, then you go back to genealogy and you do more genealogical research. And so here's the 1900 census just showing this family. They're living with a grandma. They've got Alice and Daniel as the daughter and son-in-law, and Leroy and Mary as the grandchildren. And you might notice that Leroy Hedges in this household is born in 1897, the same year that Leroy Porter from Michigan was born. So that's interesting, and that stood out to me, but it's not, a done deal. It's just interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So then we do more genealogy, and this is what I meant when I said I do this on paper. I write out a chart on paper. And so what I found out was that this couple had at least 4 kids. I think they might have had more, but they had 4 kids, and they had Ethel, Raymond, Oris, and Leroy. And Kathy has DNA matches to grandchildren of Ethel, grandchildren of Raymond, and a great grandchild of Oris. And I put down, these are, I changed the names so they're not the real names of the matches. And I put in the amount of centimorgans that they share. And remember that this is telling you basically how much DNA you share measured in centimorgans. And these people are all second cousins to one another because they come from the same great grandparents. And then this is a second cousin once removed. And then I added Kathy over here as a potential granddaughter of Leroy Hedges, assuming that Leroy Porter and Leroy Hedges were the same guy. We don't know that for sure yet. But if we put her there in this hypothetical situation, does the amount of DNA shared actually work out? So that would make Kathy a second cousin to Rob, E, and R, and a second cousin once removed to H, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you need to go to, so let's take this top amount of DNA we have here with 407 with R, and we're going to go to DNApainter.com. This is a website, and this is a free tool that you can use. Under the tools at DNApainter.com, there's something called the Shared Centimorgan Project. You could type in 407 centimorgans, and you will get down here the relationship probabilities. And you can see that 77% of the time it would be one of these relationships, but 23% of the time it could be one of these relationships. And second cousin is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lower level probability, but it's not out of the question. And so really with let me go back one, really with Kathy having matches to both the Cooke family and the Hedges family, and we were only able to find one marriage between those two families, and the amount of DNA she shares with these people descended from this couple, there really, I think, is only one explanation, and that is that Leroy Hedges turned out to be Leroy Porter, that he changed his name and went off to Michigan, and that's how that happened. But Kathy was able to make some contact with somebody from the Hedges family, and they told her some backstory that even makes it, I think, more probable that this is what happened. They said that Alice and Daniel divorced. They both remarried other people. They put those children in an orphanage for some reason. We don't know the story there. And that Leroy Hedges, the one that was born in 1897, ran away, and they never heard from him again. So probably ran away from the orphanage is what I'm thinking. Did he go to Michigan and start over as Leroy Porter? I think so. I think that's the answer. Kathy probably won't find an official name change document because at that time period, this is like 1920, people didn't have to change their name in the courts. They could if they wanted to, but most likely, I mean, he could just turn up in Michigan and call himself whatever he wanted.
Right. It's not like he has a social security number yet.
No.
Right.
No. So I think that that's probably what happened. I was hoping that maybe the Hedges family had some photos because, you know, the Porters have photos of their Leroy and they could do some comparison that way. And then they could, if they were able to find somebody in the right inheritance path, they could find a male Porter and a male Hedges to do a Y chromosome DNA test. And that would tell us that, yeah, they have the same Y chromosome. So that is the answer. But I think autosomal has already given us the answer.
Do you think that this Paris story maybe came from service in World War I or something like that? Or just a glamorous way to kind of come up with a completely different story that couldn't be traced?
Yeah, I wonder if that's what it is. But he was in World War I believe. So it's possible. And it's possible that it was so painful he didn't want to talk about it at all. And he was diverting them in another direction. Like, oh yeah, my family's over in France. You know, I've lost contact with them. Don't want to talk about it or whatever. Yeah. A way to get the family. Yeah, not to question them too closely.
So I imagine you get a lot of really interesting stories of people who walk into the library, they discover that you know a little something about DNA. And do you find that you're helping patrons? What kinds of folks are you helping when it comes to DNA?
Well, we do get a number of just people walking in and more. Indiana recently opened up its pre-adoption birth certificates. And so within the last couple of years, adoptees from Indiana have been able to request their pre-adoption birth certificate. And so we get a lot more people walking in now saying, I got my pre-adoption birth certificate. It's got some names on it. I can't figure out who these people are. I can't find them. I don't know what to do next, that kind of thing. So we're getting walk-ins like that. We also get email inquiries. And because we're doing webinars all the time now, because of the pandemic, we're reaching a wider audience, of course. I mean, we have people watching our webinars from other countries even. So very once in a while, I'll get an email from somebody that's like, oh, I'm over in, this country and can you help me? And I'm like, well, maybe.
If you have folks from Indiana, right?
No.
Although you guys are very much an international library as well. I know that your collection is just vast. We had Allison on the show not too long ago. In fact, in this video, I will have a link down in the description and on the show notes page, linking you over to watch that video to see more about the Allen County Public Library and all the work you're doing there. Sounds like you got a little bit of construction going on these days. I heard a little something in the background.
I'm afraid we do. I'm sorry. We're building a Lincoln collection room so people can go in there and learn about Abraham Lincoln because we have a large Lincoln collection.
Well, I'm just so happy that both of us had power today. I think we had no water today due to the snowstorms, but you guys were closed yesterday. But I am so glad that you've been able to join us here today and talk about real life situations, things that I think people can identify with. You've given us lots of things to kind of keep in mind. So many ideas. Okay, well, so can you tell us real quick, how can they find the Genealogy Center online at the Allen County Public Library? What's your web address?
It's genealogycenter.org. And if they want to send us an email, it is the word genealogy at acpl.info. And then
Allen County Public Library, right? ACPL.
Yes. And they can address it to me if they wanted to ask me something about DNA and I will get it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Sara Allen, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to get a chance to really sit down and talk with you. And I'm sure that you'll be hearing from folks in the future. Thanks so much for joining us here on the show.
Thank you. It was very fun.
Thank you so much to Sara Allen for sharing her research. It really helps to see somebody kind of walk through the challenges that they have, because that can spur ideas for ourselves. And I know I've been seeing some tremendous conversation in the chat. So if you're watching on the Elevenses with Lisa show notes page later into the future, and you're interested in seeing what's going on in chat, if you go over to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/genealogygems, you can watch the video, and I believe you can still see the chat as it was live. Now, one of the things that people were asking in chat was about Roots Tech. So I just wanted to take a little second here at the end of the show to talk to you about what I'll be doing with Roots Tech, which is nothing. So the scoop is that I was slated to speak at Roots Tech. And then back in December, when the videos were coming due for submission, you may know, if you've been watching the show, that my daughter was in a really serious accident. And so we totally switched gears and went into full-time care mode. And she's doing great. And I had to make some tough choices about where I was going to spend my time. And the most important thing to me, in addition to taking care of my daughter, was getting this show back up and running. And so that's what we did in January. So I will not have videos at the Roots Tech conference this year. It'll be the first time since the conference began that I haven't been presenting. But I am really excited to tell you that I have the most exciting, fun show set up for you. Well, I'm working on it for next Thursday. And fun is the key word here. This is you're going to be surprised. And if all the snow doesn't get in the way, everything's going to come together this week. And I have got a really fun show for you next week. I'm so excited about. You got to be here for Elevenses with Lisa. And so I'm filming this today, February 18th of 2021. So it's next week. And it's the same day that Roots Tech starts. We're going to be doing the live show right here at Elevenses with Lisa at the Genealogy Gems YouTube channel, 11 a.m. Central. And I can't wait to, I just can't wait to tell. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I really want to, but I can't, because if I do, that'll jinx it, and then you don't know what's going to happen. But one of the fun and cool things about next Thursday is also it is exactly the 14th anniversary of Genealogy Gems. It's the day that I started this whole thing, and it has turned into something that has certainly been a joy in my life. I hope that you have enjoyed it as well. And also, I know some of you guys have all been so wonderful keeping my daughter Lacey in your prayers. Over at Instagram, I posted this just the other day, that she is up on her feet and she is walking, and I'm so excited. She actually went home this last weekend, and so she's well on her way back to normalcy and back to walking. Thank you so much to all of you for your good wishes and your prayers. And Instagram is where I'm going to actually be announcing what the pretty cool, exciting thing is for next week first. So if you're not on Instagram, you can check it out. It is a social media platform. I really like it compared to Facebook because it's just a really nice, fun, upbeat environment, particularly if you're following other genealogists. And I certainly hope that you'll follow me, Genealogy Gems Podcast, or I think you can search on my name as well. But that's kind of where we talk about what's happening in the Cooke life and in the Genealogy Gems life and some of the newest announcements. So that's where we will announce our very special program for next week. And with that, thank you so much for joining me here each and every week. I hope that you will give us a thumbs up on the video below here. After the video is over, wow, if you leave a comment here at our YouTube channel, that is just tremendous. I love to hear from you. Leave questions, leave comments. I saw a couple of questions in the chat. I'll be running those past Sara, and we'll put the answers in the show notes. And you can find the show notes at genealogygems.com/Elevenses. Thank you so much for joining me, my friend. I will talk to you soon. Have a wonderful week.